2014 Bydgoszcz, Poland, where against the odds Team Denmark win the Monster Energy Speedway World Cup in one of the best finals ever seen in the competition's history after they broke Polish hearts in the last lap, last corner, overtaking manoeuvre by Denmark's captain Niels Christian Iversen. 2015 and Poland started their campaign to regain the title on home soil in Gniezno, Poland, where they faced Russia, Czech Republic and Sweden. It was a bad start for the home nation as this crash saw their captain and talisman Jarek Hampel break his leg in 2 places, leaving the Poles to race with just 3 men for the rest of the meeting. Despite the support of the home crowd and an early lead, the Polish side were unable to hold off Team Sweden, led by Andreas Jonsson, as the Swedes eventually tied up the meeting to progress directly through to the final, with the Poles being joined by Russia in the race-off. Event 2, Kings Lynn in the east of England, where home nation Great Britain took on Australia, Latvia and the USA. It was always going to be a battle between GB and the Roos to see who would join Denmark and Sweden direct into the final. Team USA, led by current world champion Greg Hancock, battled hard, but always ran a competitive third, whilst Latvia failed to show the promise they showed in the same competition 12 months earlier. Going into the final 4 heats, Australia led Great Britain by just 1 point, but wins by Morris, Batchelor and Doyle saw the confident Aussies win the meeting by 4 points and progress directly into the final, much to the delight of their skipper, Chris Holder.
We all scored quite good. Nick Morris, hat off to him for his first go here, and he was one of our top dogs tonight, so fair play to him. And Doyle, Troy did a job as well, so we're stoked to go through to the final now.
So the 2015 Monster Energy World Cup moved to Vojens, Denmark, for the race-off and final, where Team Great Britain faced 6-time World Cup winners Poland, the USA led by Greg Hancock, and a depleted Russian side due to illness. From the start, it looked very much like a battle between Team Great Britain and Poland. Russia, racing with only 3 riders, posed no threat, and even the USA under their captain fantastic Greg Hancock couldn't compete. Outstanding on the night was Britain's Ty Woffington, who scored a maximum 21 points, which kept Poland and Great Britain locked in a duel for the whole evening, until the last 4 heats, when a decisive 3 wins from the 4 final races eventually gave them a victory over the Great Britain side and a berth in the final to face Australia, Sweden and hosts Denmark.
I never raced here, Bartek never raced here, so we all have some experience now, and I think we can, like today, we can show a couple good heats, and I hope this will be good for fans and on the end, good for us.
Hi there, good evening and a very warm welcome to Vojens Speedway Centre in southern Denmark, where it's a little bit wet to say the least here. The first information we can give you is that the racing has been delayed by half an hour. We're due to get underway in just around 28 minutes from now. Kelvin Tatum is alongside me. Kelvin, we have a scenario here where we really do believe that the rain has got to stop for this meeting to have any chance of getting started.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's very unfortunate. The weather this week has been gorgeous here in Denmark, but it's turned. It's notorious for poor weather here in Vojens, and in the last couple of hours we've had plenty of rain, and so the track is very wet. A delay, but I think they're going to need some time for it to stop raining and then do some work on the track if at all possible, but it's very frustrating for all concerned.
Yeah, very much so. The fans in the stadium, most of them with umbrellas. They do a roaring trade for umbrellas in this part of the world. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we will get underway in half an hour's time. Let's just take a look at the way the sides line up here tonight in Vojens for this World Cup final. Australia first of all. And we see Chris Holder, the 2012 world champion, is the skipper of the side. Jason Doyle goes at number 2 for Australia tonight. Number 3 is Nick Morris, made his World Cup debut on Monday at Kings Lynn and did ever so well. And Troy Batchelor, Grand Prix rider, goes at number 4. And we hear from Chris Holder now.
It's going to be tough. This track's not an easy one, and being on the Danish team is quite good, so it's going to be a hard one. But if we can get out the starts here and get some points on the board early, it'll make it a bit easy for us.
Let's take a look at the Polish side. They will ride in the white helmet colour tonight. Here's how they line up. It's Bartosz Szmaszlik going at number 1, the brilliant youngster from Gorzów. We have Krzysztof Peszkowski at number 2, rode in the race off on Thursday and did well. Maciej Janowski made his first appearance at Vojens on Thursday and rode superbly. Przemek Pawlicki goes at number 4, and now we hear from the skipper, Maciej Janowski.
I think we all feel exciting because for sure this will be very interesting meeting for the fans, and I know it's like a lot of good riders here, and I'm pretty sure we can show like good speedway tonight.
Take a look at the Swedish side now, the team in the blue helmet colour. They won the event in Gniezno last Saturday night to qualify for the World Cup final. We have Antonio Lindbach riding at number 1, has been in fine form this season. Andreas Jonsson, the most experienced rider in their side. Lina Sundström goes at number 3, and riding at number 4 is Freddie Lindgren, a former Grand Prix rider. And let's hear from Andreas Jonsson now.
We're up against really good teams here today, and you know, as I see it, we got nothing to lose. We're going to go all in and just hope for the best.
And finally, the home nation. They are the Danish side. Pleased to report that the rain is easing up right now. Peter Killerman goes at number 1. Very spectacular rider. Triple world champion Nicky Pedersen at 2. Niels Christian Iversen riding at number 3 is the skipper of the side. And Kenneth Bier rides at number 4. Let's hear now from Niels Christian Iversen.
I hope we can prove that we have the best team. You know, we did win it last year, and we had a pretty good run last couple of years. So we are home track now, and I think the home crowd expect us to win. So we do the same.
Yeah, it was a sensational win for Denmark last year, of course, and pleased to report that it does appear that the rain has eased up now, and we obviously then keep our fingers crossed that the track is okay for us to take some action in here in around half an hour, just under half an hour's time. Ollie Olsen, who is the chief here at Vojens, of course, with Phil Morris, the race director here. And down in the pits area, let's get the feeling amongst the pits area now, and closer to the track as well for us is Steve Brandon. What are your thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, thanks, Nigel. All of the team managers, just before we went on air, had quite a long conversation, long meeting with Phil Morris, the FIM race director, and the basic thread of that meeting was that they're happy to give it a go providing it stops, but they've also agreed with Ollie Olsen that there's probably going to be about half an hour's remedial work where Ollie's going to look at scraping the material, the very wet top surface off the track. He's got dry material on standby, and he'll be looking to bring that into play. But one interesting thing I've picked up down in the pits for you guys, and I think see what Kelvin's reaction is, the Swedish team quite fancy a wet meeting. They think that this might just be a little bit of a trump card for them riding in the wet. Kelvin, what's your experience? Swedish Speedway, you've ridden there a lot. They do ride in the wet, and they are quite good at riding in the wet.
They may be, but I think probably what is more important in that regard is the fact that they are the underdogs here this evening. The conditions that we have now, it's very much a lottery. There will be no favourites really now. Conditions are going to be very tricky, visibility will be tricky, and the Swedes will feel that this is an opportunity for them to be spoilers. So I can understand that philosophy, but right now, even though it's eased off, I am still concerned about the amount of rain we've had. It's rained quite hard for 2 hours. We had covers on until 4 o'clock. They were taken off, and unfortunately it then started to rain. So that's disappointing, but it will be interesting to see if they can knock this track into some sort of shape where we can get a really good meeting, because we've got such a smashing lineup here this evening. It was going to be a cracker of a World Cup final. I do hope that the weather doesn't spoil it.
I think that's one of the key factors, Kelvin, is that Mark Lemon said that with the remedial work that they're going to look to do, given the chance for the rain to completely stop, it has almost stopped out here but not quite completely, is Mark Lemon said they've got one go at getting it fixed. So it'll be interesting to see if the rain does stop and they get to do that work, what track we get. But you're absolutely right, a cracking meeting, 4 teams that really had a fairly even chance. There's lots of guys can win races, and I just hope that we get to see a really good Speedway World Cup final.
Here we see Marek Cieślak, the Polish team manager, now making his way out onto the track, where already Anders Secker, the Danish team manager, and Mark Lennon, the Australian team manager, are talking to Phil Morris, the Speedway World Cup race director. If they are going to do this remedial work, then perhaps is now a good time to get started, Kelvin, because although it's still drizzling slightly, if there's fresh material to go down, the sooner they get started, the sooner we can get on with it.
It's a risk because you start moving the material around, then you get a mess that needs to be tidied up, so you can knock the track into some sort of condition to be able to race on.
And Steve Brandon in the pits has got an update for us now.
The latest update from the conversation that's taking place between the team managers and Phil Morris is that the team managers now are saying they don't want to do any remedial work on the track. They're just looking to have the rain stop. We're still looking at a 7:30 start time, and they feel we might just be better off leaving it as it is and getting on with it. So again, 20 minutes to go, but it's interesting decision, Kelvin. What's your take on that?
I think it's probably the right one, because when you start grading and pulling the dirt about, you then create quite a lot of mess that can take an awful long time to actually redress. So it's not ideal, and the biggest concern will be, Nige, that the actual visibility for riders in second and third and fourth, there still will be a lot of surface water. The track is saturated.
Yeah, Steve, you're out there down in the pits area. We're undercover here in the commentary box. Just explain what is the status with the rain now. It doesn't look heavy from here. Can they? Could they race in this now, in your opinion?
Well, I think it's virtually stopped. I just think one of the interesting things in the last sort of 5-6 minutes is the wind has picked up, so it's blowing some fresh air through the stadium. That'll help the little bit that it'll give. But more importantly, I think there's just everyone wants to hope that there's no more rain for 20 minutes. We get a little bit of drying on the track surface, and we go from there. I think it's interesting that a lot of the Polish young riders, probably the least experienced team in the final, all looking at the track from the pit gate. It'll be interesting to see how they attack this, because they are by far the least experienced, but probably the team with almost as much expectation on Denmark with delivering another World Cup win. So it'll be telling for them, all the young guys there, all on the pit gate, having a look. And just Kelvin, for you, just with the lack of experience, do you think that could be a factor for them this evening?
It could be. It's probably their biggest, some of the riders, their biggest night, but they're used to huge pressure in Polish league. Schmarzlik, of course, has won a Grand Prix. Janowski is a top quality rider. I don't think that'll be too significant. I think they're a very confident bunch of riders. I think the biggest concern will be visibility and the safety of racing. No problem for the guy out in front. It will be the fact riders in second, third and fourth, will they be able to see where they're going? And the only way that's going to be found out is if after heat one. It's just such a shame that that the covers that they have here weren't left on for longer. Yeah,
it would appear, as we know now with hindsight, it would have appeared to have been a better decision to leave it on. But we see Phil Morris now, he's down on the exit to turn 4 just by the pit gate with the team managers, and I can't hear the conversation, I'm not near enough, but it looks to me like there might be some differing opinions on moving material or doing different things. So
well, that doesn't come as a surprise, Steve.
No, it doesn't to me either.
Certain team managers will have different agendas. Who will have listened to their riders and what they would like. So I don't envy Phil Morris. Phil Morris, a new race director this year. He's had a baptism of fire. He's had a tough season so far, and this will be again a test of his position. Anders Secker in the background, Phil Morris chatting there, Schieslek, of course, there from Poland, has seen it all, been around an awful long time, but to get everybody to agree is difficult, and then of course riders will come into the equation.
Well, that's the other thing as well. Obviously, you mentioned it, Kelvin. The team managers all had an opinion expressed by riders. I know Nicky Pedersen's been quite vocal talking to Anders Secker with his opinion, and it would just be interesting now that, like you say, Phil has now got to really manage quite a lot of expectations now, and maybe be a little bit political here and get what is best for the meeting, or maybe the majority. But I'll try and go and find out what's being said and come back to you.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. The starting tapes are being put into place now. They are testing the starting gate. There is still a little bit of drizzle coming down. If that gets any heavier, then we may be in trouble, but you know, fingers crossed, maybe, just maybe, in around quarter of an hour's time, we may get heat number 1 underway. Whatever, it is a shame. It's not going to be ideal.
No.
Kelvin's made the point here that it's a fantastic lineup, and let's hope it doesn't turn out to be a lottery and that we can get the racing away and have a good standard of racing as well. Here we see the Australian number 1, Chris Holder, on his way out. And certainly the lineup is superb and one of the best lineups you could wish for.
And it will be a shame if it's undermined by the weather. We want to see a great advert for World Championship Speedway. The World Cup final is often some of the best Speedway we see all year.
Well, the very latest now will come from the pits area once again, where I know Steve Brandon has got a little bit of news for us from Phil Morris. Steve, what's he told you?
Just spoke to Phil after the animated conversation we just saw taking place, and we're back to the plan of doing some remedial work. The managers have looked at it, and now they've decided they are going to have to move some of this material off the top. So, differing opinions, it's changing every moment. The only good news at the moment is the rain has virtually stopped. There's the odd spot, but nothing like it was. And so hopefully we'll see this remedial work getting underway shortly, and hopefully we'll see some racing tonight.
Yep, fingers crossed. Thanks, Steve, down in the pits area. The situation right now is that we are due to start Heat 1 at 7:30, but that is not going to happen now.
It won't.
In fact, the tractors are coming out now, Kelvin.
I fear for the meeting now, because when you start moving material around when it's wet, it's far from ideal. They do have smashing equipment here. They've got some terrific stuff, and of course they're accustomed to having plenty of rain here. Ollie Olsen is out on the track. He's going to be overseeing that. Phil Morris, of course, is at the other end of the track. But I've got to say, they have covers here. If they were still on, we wouldn't have a problem.
Yeah. Well, the tractors are coming out then, so the track work is about to begin. Differing opinions. At one stage it was leave the track as it is. Now it appears that some work will take place to try and get this meeting on, and to try and make sure that the Monster Energy FIM Speedway World Cup final can get underway. Looks at this stage as though what they're doing here is grading the track and maybe trying to move the top surface without actually blading it off. Fingers crossed that'll have the desired effect. You have to feel for the fans here. They're obviously being patient and standing around.
You do, because most of it is uncovered. So they're they're all having to get their brollies up, and they've got plenty of waterproofs here. This will be interesting to see exactly what is the outcome of this track grading. It's not a blade that's actually moving the top surface. It just looks like it's just going to disturb it a little bit. Whether that will have the desired effect, I'm not entirely sure. As I say, the biggest concern for riders will be visibility. The track will be still quite firm, but it will be the spray coming off the back tyres for riders second, third and fourth that will be of great concern. And then the ability to be able to see where you're going at high speed, that will be the question from a rider's perspective. And if it's the card that's played, it's unsafe, then there's a possibility the race meeting may have to be postponed until tomorrow. But in truth, that they aren't actually committing to doing very much at the moment.
Yeah, so fingers crossed this work will do the trick. Now, Mark Lemon is the Australian team manager, always good for an opinion, always good for a comment, and he is with Steve.
Mark Lemon, we saw you down with the other team managers talking to race director Phil Morris. What have you been saying, and what was the general opinion?
Well, naturally, the concerns are for the track and the rider's safety. The track is pretty waterlogged at the moment. They wanted us to continue as soon as the rain stopped. The rain's very intermittent right now, and probably the rain is not the issue right at this point in time, but the track safety is a major concern. They wanted us to crack on, but I'm afraid I've seen conditions like this, deteriorate, and we probably wouldn't see a meeting get up to a great start. So they're going to scrape some material off the surface, and hopefully we can start racing pretty soon.
You've ridden a lot of Speedway. Kelvin in the commentary box has ridden a lot of Speedway. Visibility, the key, making sure guys can see where they're going.
Yeah, absolutely. That is very vital, and that's why it's essential that the rain stops. But I think the rain is light enough now that visibility is okay. But the track is more of a concern than the visibility at this moment.
And you're keeping an eye on the track and dealing with Phil. Also, you've got to keep an eye on the riders and keep them prepared, ready to get going when the meeting starts.
Yeah, they're pretty experienced guys. It's like young Nick, he's just doing his thing, so I let him crack on. But a lot of things go through a rider's mind, and probably the last place they want to be right now is here and in these conditions. But yeah, we're just keeping them informed, and I won't let them go unless it's right.
Thanks for your time.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah, good stuff from Mark Lemon there, and he says the track is quite waterlogged at the moment.
It is.
Now the track work that they're doing, Kelvin, it does appear as though they are moving material towards the outside of the track. Is that the right thing to do?
They laid a lot of granite on the top of the surface after the track has been used pretty much every day for the last 3 days, and they did that on Thursday, and they've done it again. It'll be interesting to see if that works. Effectively, you can now see how wet it is underneath, and it is very wet. And I think in some ways the granite on top was actually disguising how wet it is. I think when I go on about visibility, we can all see the track. It's the visibility of the rider behind the leader. The spray coming off the back tyre will be the problem, because you'll get spray in your goggles and you may not be able to see where you're going sufficiently well enough. I believe that will be the biggest challenge for riders out there this evening. The racing can't be as good as it should have been because the track is very wet. That is a shame. There is clearly a great effort going on to make this meeting go ahead this evening. But what a terrible shame. It possibly could upset what has been a fabulous week of Speedway.
It has. It's been a great World Cup.
It's been a fantastic World Cup, and the weather has been, up until this evening, outstanding. So, like the Thursday was a super meeting. Saturday in Gniezno was a great meeting. Sweden came through, but Poland obviously losing Hampel early in the meeting, that was a blow for them. But no, up until this evening, the weather has been terrific.
Yeah, and I just wonder now, are they going to go ahead with a plan to put some dry material on top? Because it is extremely wet now. You see how deep it has gone down, the rain that has come down. And there is another update now from Steve Brandon.
Thanks, Nigel. Yeah, the latest update with this remedial work that's going on now with the tractor going around dragging the wet material off. Kelvin's absolutely right, it's very wet underneath. But now they're telling me that there's going to be no new material going down on the track, and we're still looking at starting at 7:30. So hopefully the rain's going to stay away and we'll get some racing.
Well, thank you, Steve. So yeah, the rain, it does appear as though it is just light drizzle at the moment, but even light drizzle, Kelvin, on top of what we've got here, that will just add to the difficulties, I assume, for the riders.
It's not going to be ideal. I think, to all intents and purposes, to get a proper meeting, it needs to be postponed until tomorrow. We will, if we race this evening, we won't see the spectacle that we were all hoping for. All I hope that the racing is the track conditions are safe enough for riders to really be able to give of their best. But starting, it will be at an absolute premium. The rider that hits the front and gets around that first corner and gets down the back straight will have a massive advantage. So as I say, that's going to be of concern, but with these conditions, unfortunately, we won't see the meeting we were hoping for.
Looks like it's driving rain again now. Does appear as though the rain is coming down again quite heavily with a driving breeze behind it. This is all very frustrating and very disappointing, of course. All we can do is keep our fingers crossed, but I think the most significant comments were from Mark Lemon when he said that the track is already quite waterlogged, so that is a concern with rain coming down again now, Kelvin, and it is actually coming down with quite a force.
And all of these decisions are based upon the rain stopping, and unfortunately it's come back in again now, and the only way that you can improve the conditions for racing conditions is that the rain stops, and it's just not behaving itself. Unfortunately, it's just coming back in again, and when they've done this remedial work now, it's actually exposed the track and you can quite clearly see how wet it is, and I can assure you that that won't be delighting riders. It really is a shame. You can see there now it's raining rather hard again, and that's a great shame, because if it had stopped, then maybe we had a slim chance of a race meeting, but it's really is looking like it's setting in again.
That's my concern, Kelv. Looking around the sky all around us, it's full, isn't it? It's full of rain, it seems. That
whatever happens here this evening, Nigel, if we have a race meeting, it will be not of the standard and the spectacle that we all deserve, and the riders deserve, because it's World Cup final is a special evening. It really is. And the weather coming in now will be quite possibly meaning that the meeting will be postponed. It's been put back another half an hour.
But this can't go on forever. Half an hour delays. We need this rain to stop now, because it is driving rain, and as we look down the back straight into the trees.
I've ridden here on a lot of occasions when it's rained, you know, big open meetings, World Championship meetings. I rode in a World Cup meeting here when it rained this bad, and it was a really challenging night. The meeting did go ahead, but it was an awful night, and you know, riders really did have a real struggle to maintain their control of the bikes, and that will be the problem. And you know, just as it looked like it was easing off and giving us half a chance of a meeting, this rain has come back in again, and I can't believe that riders are going to be prepared to go out when the rain is heavy. I can't see it.
So we have another delay now. We're due to get underway in 35 minutes time, but I'm sure there'll be major concern about the way this rain has just come in again. So it is frustrating. Apologies for this. There's nothing we can do about the weather, and we're just having to fill really until such a time that we can get on. I think we can go down to the pits, and here's Steve Brandon.
Yeah, thanks, Nigel. All the bike warming up has stopped now, and the riders quite universally, when the rain started to come down again, all turned, left the pit gate and have walked back to their pit bays, just continuing to talk to their team managers. They're now all aware of another half-hour delay, and I think now it's just a case of everyone's hoping and knows that the only way this will be a proper race meeting is if the rain stops, and hopefully the track will behave itself. But there's no militancy down here. No one's saying they're not going to ride, but at the moment it's just a case of waiting, and they can all see the rain. They're all under cover, and we're in the lap of the weather gods now. So, Kelvin, just for you as a rider, if this does go ahead, how hard is it after an hour's delay to get yourself right into the race meeting?
Well, what you can't afford to do now is allow yourself to feel that the meeting will be off. You must be you must have the mindset that you are going to go racing, because if you allow yourself to fall into the comfort zone that no, this will be off, I don't really want to ride, and then you're suddenly forced to go out, you will not be able to perform at the highest level. You've got to be able to keep your mind in a position where you are racing until somebody confirms that you're not. And as I say, if we race here this evening, we will not see what we were all hoping to be able to see. It's not possible, the track is too wet. If we do go racing, all I hope is that the racing is sufficiently safe for us to be able to get through and complete, because what we don't want to do is start and then have to stop. That would be really messy.
No, yep. I think that's one of the things from a rider's perspective. It's very hard to have that in the back of your mind. We're seeing Chris Holder there, he's sort of walking around. Andreas Jonsson, the Swedish captain, stood up, but the Polish riders all sat down in their chairs in their pit bays, just really playing that waiting game. There's nothing they can do. Antonio Lindbeck's putting some more tear-offs in his goggles, and it is really just that. It's just a pit lane that's just full of people all waiting to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but hopefully now this is the last of the rain. I think it's still drizzling slightly. So really is on and off. It's very intermittent, the rain at the moment.
The concern is that if we started and we got some rain in, you know, if we start, we need to finish, don't we? We don't want to do half a dozen races and then have to then call it off. I do think the track at the moment, Nigel, I don't want to be the voice of doom and gloom, but in my opinion, the track is too wet for a World Championship event. And it's a great shame. But, you know, unfortunately, in this part of the world, it can rain, and it often does. And we don't want to see a great event spoiled. I appreciate there are pressures logistically with riders needing to be away, hotel rooms, airfares and flights have to be rebooked. It really is a logistical nightmare, but at the end of the day, we want to see a proper World Cup final. I know I do. I think on the conditions that I'm looking at now, I think that's unlikely this evening. I'm not suggesting that we won't have a meeting, but it won't be of the standard that I was really excited about.
Well, I think it is still a little bit of drizzle at the moment. The team managers of Australia and Poland there, Mark Lemon and Marek Cieślak. And Mark Lemon, by the way, of course, has all the experience of being a recent rider. Was in action last season, of course. So he's well up to speed with the modern-day logistics of the bikes and the way it works.
That's a good point.
And track conditions.
That's a very good point. Bikes are fast now. They're high revving engines. They react very quickly, as we saw with the incident with Jarek Hampel on Saturday last week in Gniezno. And as I say, the surface water here isn't going to suddenly disappear because it's still very inclement. It's not like we've got beautiful sunshine to suddenly dry everything out. The only way that you're going to have a dry racing track here is to actually remove the top surface. The tractor at the moment, fundamentally, it's just moving that surface around a bit. In truth, I think it's possibly made it slightly worse, or certainly to the eye it looks worse than it did when the granite was almost disguising the racing track. Now we're getting a heavier blade coming out, actual fact, Nigel, and that will be interesting to see if that actually moves more of the surface away to actually get to a drier part of the track underneath. That's what needs to happen if we're going to have a race meeting here tonight. It really does.
Yeah, rain still drizzling right now. Be interesting to see if they do put a new top surface down, but very difficult, I guess, when there's still some rain coming down.
That's so dangerous, because if you now put dry material on the top of what is already a very wet track, you just then end up getting a lot more wet material, which is, you don't want that.
One of the Danish boys, Niels Christian Iversen, is with our man Steve Brandon.
Niels, you have to ride in the meeting yourself, but as a captain, what are the team discussing? What's everyone talking about with the weather, with the track?
Everybody is just sort of sitting around at the moment. You know, we don't really know what's going to happen with the weather and stuff. But yeah, hopefully it will stop raining soon, and they can get on with the track, and we can start the meeting.
It will make it tricky for the riders out there in what is a very important meeting. How do you keep focused now, knowing it's delayed, it's gone back half an hour already? You've got to keep yourself up for a race meeting, for a World Cup final.
No, that's not a problem. Of course, everybody want to know what's going on, but as it stands at the moment, yeah, we don't really know what's going to happen with the weather, but we'll have to wait and see and keep focused, of course.
You've had a look at the track. How wet is it out there?
It looks quite wet at the moment, but I'm sure if the rain stops, then we can easily fix the track and then race, have a good meeting. So, but again, it depends on if the weather going to stop raining. So,
thanks for your time. Nice and positive. Cheers.
Yeah, very positive from Niels Christian Iversen, the Danish captain. The rain is still coming down here in Vojens right now, and at the same time as the rain is coming down, they are trying to do something with the track, and they are quite clearly now fighting to save this meeting tonight. That is how it looks at the moment. Information will be forthcoming if the meeting is postponed tonight as to the restaging, which we assume will be tomorrow, but that's just an assumption. But again, the rain, once it stops, it builds your hopes up, and then it just breezes back in, and that's what's frustrating everybody right now. Really, around 7 o'clock, Kelv, we just needed it to stop completely. You must have had, during your long career, you must have had meetings where you were left hanging around in the pits for quite a while, with the rain coming down.
It's tough, and you know, Niels Christian Iversen was remarkably positive, possibly as a home rider. He feels that he's duty-bound to do that. And I think that's one way of dealing with it. You're racing until you're told you're not. Because if you do allow yourself to feel that, well, no, it's not right, and I don't think we ought to be out there, and then suddenly, crikey, the tapes are down and the green light's on, I'll tell you what, it's very much more difficult to switch that focus back on again. So I hear where he's coming from, but as I say, I'm in the commentary box now. I don't have to race this evening, which I'm quite pleased about. But I would say that that's going to be quite challenging out there this evening.
Yeah, it's been a great World Cup so far, of course,
yes.
And there's been quite a few highlights that we've enjoyed. We wish, of course, Jarek Hampel all the very best. It's a week now since Jarek unfortunately suffered that broken leg in 2 places in Gniezno last Saturday night. But from a British point of view, Kelvin, we've been very interested to watch young Robert Lambert, the 17-year-old for Great Britain.
Indeed, he's done himself proud, and his country. He's managed to pick up some wins in the World Cup. He passed the world champion in fine style, and he rode here. He'd never been here before, won 2 races on Thursday, and he's one for the future, no question about that. Ty Woofenden here with 21 points on Thursday. The World Championship leader was truly outstanding, and terrific to see how well Ty was riding. So yes, from a Team GB perspective, they did pretty well. They just got squeezed out by a slightly stronger team on the night on Thursday to miss out on the final. I've got to say that the young Polish team look very exciting, with
I was just going to come on to them.
Riders like Bartosz Szmarslik coming in, and Pawlicki and Buszkowski coming in for Hampel rode very well on Thursday, just dropping 1 point, I believe. So, you know, it's some really exciting. And moving on to the Australian team, Nigel, you look at Nick Morris.
What a night he had on Monday at Kingsley.
Exactly, and he's grabbing his opportunity with both hands. The suspended Darcy Ward would almost certainly be in the World Cup squad, but Morris is in, and he's enjoying a great season, and he was fast on King's Lynn on Monday. And
the thing is with Nick as well, Kelvin, is that he's kept out some good riders, you know, the likes of Sam Masters and particularly Dakota North, who we've seen in the British Elite League score plenty of points.
Max Frick.
Yeah, they've got some talented young Australian riders.
Yeah,
and Nick has kept them out.
Yes, and rightly so. We've seen him on 2 or 3 occasions this year, haven't we? And he's been really fast every time we've seen him. And speaking to his parents yesterday, he seems to have really matured this winter, and a penny has dropped, so that's good to see. Chris Holder, of course, the former world champion, he'll be keeping a close eye on it. Phil Morris just taking another look at the track. This is tough times for a race director. Really is tough.
It's been a baptism of fire for him this year, hasn't it?
It has, no doubt about that. And it's I don't envy him this tonight. It's been a tough evening so far. Antonio Lindbäck's another interesting character for the Swedes. He has had his problems away from the track, but his performances on track this year have been really very impressive indeed. And watching him practice yesterday, he looks like he's he's got all his hunger back. He really was very spectacular, and as I say, I'm looking forward to seeing him doing the business out there. And looking at Kenneth Bjerre, just a word about the Danes. The Danes are favourites for this evening. Quite a brave move from Anders Secker to include Kenneth Bjerre, who's had an up and down season. And it'll be interesting to see how he performs this evening.
Well, let's see if we can get an update now on a revised start time, I understand, with track work going ahead. Here's Steve Brandon.
Yeah, thanks again, Nigel. Yeah, the latest update is that we need just under 15 more minutes now on the track work, and the rain has stopped. There's no water in there's no rain coming into the several puddles that are in the pit lane, and we're looking at going racing at 7:50. So just under 13 minutes from now, we should see Heat 1 of the 2015 Monster Energy Speedway World Cup final kick-off. So hopefully in just under 13 minutes we're going to go racing.
Fingers crossed, and let's hope that it works out well for us with Kenneth Bjerre, Antonio Lindbäck, Przemysław Pawlicki and Jason Doyle, the riders in that first race, and there'll be a certain amount of apprehension in that, I would think.
Oh, without a question, you know, they're going to be quite tricky. Jason Doyle is a rider also that's come on leaps and bounds in the last 2 years. He burst on the international scene in the World Cup a couple of seasons ago. He's now a fully fledged Grand Prix rider and a mainstay in the World Cup side. And he'll be keen, as the other 3 will be. The first 4 riders out on track. Any practice that was done this week is just completely out of the window. Conditions are vastly different now. And as I say, the emphasis on being able to make a good start and get away is going to be absolutely paramount. If you're going to be in traffic tonight, then you're going to have to have a bit of good fortune, because it's wet, very wet.
Very wet. And you can see that when they're actually moving the
you can see all the
dirt around.
The slop.
Slop, that's what it is, yeah.
On the top, it's very wet, and I still think that there's going to be concern over conditions. We've got the Swedish team out there, the majority of them with their management crew having a good look at conditions, although Steve was saying that they quite fancied a wet meeting, but there comes a point where safety will be questioned.
Bikes are warming up again. There is no rain at the moment, and the forecast that I've seen anyway suggests that rain was due to stop around this time, so okay. Perhaps the forecast has proved to be absolutely spot on for a pleasant change, and that well, we can get the meeting away tonight. Riders out there, the Swedish team are on the infield having a team meeting. No doubt conditions will be discussed, but if we are getting on with it, then no doubt the team managers will be trying to instill a real positive attitude into their riders.
Test the character now. you know, riders need to stay focused. You've got the poles there just dancing around and getting themselves all fired up, and quite interesting to see that. And you've got to say they've obviously got their coach there. They desperately want to put on a big display. The World Cup has been dominated by Denmark and Poland in the last decade. Poland have got 6 wins to the Danish 4, and of course with the Danes winning in Poland last year, I'm sure the Polish contingent would love to gain revenge on turning them over on their own patch here in Vojens in 2015.
Yeah, very much so. Freddie Lindgren on his way out with his colleagues to take a look at things.
Didn't ride, of course, did he, in these events, the earlier event this week?
No, it was Peter Young, wasn't it?
Peter Young, and he's been brought in to ride here in Vojens. And team management, Morgan Anderson, obviously feeling that Lindgren is a better bet for Vojens. Antonio Lindback out there, Andreas Johnson with some brand new equipment in his 3 new engines here. He's invested in for this World Cup. But,
Phil Morris having a word. I wonder what they're discussing here.
Well, quite clearly there's still concerns over track conditions. Smiles there, which is good news.
Yeah,
Not too much tension between them, but I think we'll only really know what this is all about until the riders come off after the first 4 laps. Fingers crossed that they do 4 laps.
Yeah, it's going to be greasy, that's for sure, and a real test for the riders then as we prepare for the meeting to get underway in just under 10 minutes time now. And a reminder, it is the Monster Energy FIM Speedway World Cup final, with Denmark will be in the red helmet all night. Sweden will be wearing the blue helmet colour, Poland will be wearing white, and Australia will be wearing the yellow helmet colour. So that's the way it is. 3 points for a win, 2 for second, 1 for third, and nothing for finishing last in the race format. 1 rider from each nation in each heat, 20 heats to decide the 2015 World Champions. And for the last decade, it's been Denmark and Poland domination.
It has, and they have been the outstanding teams. That man there, Peter Kuhlmann, is a rider that we will be seeing now in the Grand Prix. He will be replacing Jarek Hampel, and probably a little bit unlucky not to get a permanent pick. Rain now beginning to come back down again, which will be very disheartening for all, because now having removed the top surface, it will only get wetter again. I do think that after the first race, I think we will be revisiting whether the meeting will go ahead. I really do. I think conditions are very, very, for me, very close to being whether this meeting ought to go ahead or not.
Well, there does seem to be some positivity, and Nicky Pedersen doing his starting exercises. That's not a bad start, Nicky, not bad.
He doesn't miss many. He is one of the truly outstanding best starters in the world, and a man that is in great physical shape. He works extremely hard to get himself ready for a season, and is always well prepared. A very professional outfit he has, and of course he'll want to put on a big show. Marek Cieślak coming out. Still concerns over conditions, Nigel. Yeah,
it's raining again now, and that is the last thing we need. Let's hope that we can get underway in around 7 or 8 minutes time, but the rain has started again. The medical staff have made their way out to the infield, so it's one of those where the fingers are well and truly crossed here in Vojens tonight. My weather forecast was clearly wrong, because it suggested there would be no more rain.
Yeah, it's drifting back across the track now. It looks like we're all set to go, which will be very interesting, but all I hope is that we're able to get 4 riders around 4 times safely. That will be the utmost concern now. And when you've got riders at this level, this is such a big event, you know, commitment going into the first corner is going to be absolutely 100%. So, you know, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough night, and you've got to make a start, otherwise you're going to find it very tough indeed.
Well, fingers crossed. Well, rain is just starting to come across. Sideways rain, it's a strong breeze, the flag's flying on the back straight, and the question must be asked now, will they start if it is raining? I'd have to say that's doubtful.
I think it's unlikely if it does rain hard before the first race comes on. I do think that they'll have to delay it again. And
you
unfortunately,
can only delay it for so long then, though, Kelv, can't you?
Well, yeah, so the decision finally, somebody will have to make a decision whether the meeting's postponed until tomorrow, where the forecast tomorrow is clear. We will have far better conditions tomorrow. Whatever happens this evening, it will be a compromise.
Yep. The Danish boys just taking a look at conditions. Niels Christian Iversen enjoying a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, or maybe a hot chocolate.
Coffee, I would think, in this part of the world, Nige.
Yep, very nice.
But it's the surface water in the material. It's going to present a challenge. It really will. It'll be greasy. The surface underneath, what I would say is that the base of the track is solid. That isn't any real concern at all. There's no ruts in the track. It's behaved itself brilliantly all week.
Phil Morris is telling the tractor to just do the one more lap and get off. We're 5 minutes away from the scheduled start time.
Tapes are coming down.
Tapes are coming across now. So yeah, it looks as though we're about to get ready. But I have to say, rain is coming down again. Phil Morris, the race director, has just updated our man down in the pits. He's just updated Steve Brandon. What you got for us, Steve?
Yes, Nigel, Phil Morris has just run past back from the track and told all the team managers and all the teams to be prepared to push off in 3 minutes. So we're looking at 7:48/7:49. We're looking to push off for Heat 1. It is still raining, and I think Kelvin's absolutely right. It will be interesting to see what happens in terms of a race and how the riders get round the first race of the night.
Okay, thanks, Steve. So riders and team managers have been told it is getting on with it. We are getting on with it. It's all systems go.
Well, I'll tell you what, Nigel, it's not clear this meeting's going to start. We've got Nicky Pedersen, Chris Holder, 2 former world champions on the track now. This is, the difference between the race director saying that we are going to start and world-class riders, former world champions, actually agreeing to race is 2 very different things. And Holder and Nicky Pedersen will be concerned. They won't be delighted to what they see. So yeah, I still think there's a question mark over whether we'll start when they're saying we're going to start.
Well, we shall see. Any time now, the riders should be getting on their bikes and ready to push off for the first race. Crowd are cheering because they've obviously been told that we're getting underway very shortly indeed. Starting tapes are being tested, and here we see Jason Doyle of Australia ready for action in the first race of the night. Be interesting. You're assuming that Nicky Pedersen and Chris Holder were looking at the track, and you're assuming they weren't happy, Kelv. Body language.
Well, they wouldn't have been delighted, would
no,
they?
Of course not,
because
no.
It's wet. Looks like Nicky's just checking the starts out. Does appear that we're going to get underway.
Yep, he's in Heat 1 in his first race, so he's just checking that out for Heat number 3 for the triple world champion.
Well, Gate 1, sorry, you said Heat 1. Sorry, I thought he was out in the first race. He's out in Heat 3.
Gate 1 in Heat 3,
Gate 1, yeah, so he just had a quick check at that. Here we go. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed that we get some half-sensible action.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Good luck to all the riders. Let's hope we have a good one. And that...
Unfortunately, it won't be the meeting we're looking forward to.
Yeah. But here we go. Riders making their way out onto the circuit. Here comes Antonio Lindback. And the 2 minutes time allowance is on for the start of the Monster Energy FIM Speedway World Cup. Bikes out on the track. And now they're out on the track. Let's keep our fingers crossed that we can get through this meeting and see some decent action as well here at the Vojens Speedway Centre. It's a 2015 World Cup final. Riders are going to be nervous. Riders are going to be very apprehensive. But at the same time, they have to stay positive to try and make a good start here. 3 points for a win, 2 for second, 1 for third, none for finishing last. 1 rider from each nation in every race here in Vojens. So, heat number 1 coming up. After a rain delay, the start of the World Cup final is coming up. Here we go with the first race of the night. Przemek Pawlicki goes off the inside in white for Poland. Antonio Lindback, gate 2, blue for Sweden. Gate 3, red, Kenneth Pierre for Denmark. And outside in yellow is Jason Doyle for Australia. There's going to be a bit of apprehension out there, I'm sure. A few nerves as well. Riders, I presume, Kelvin, have to adopt a positive approach here.
We've got no other choice, otherwise you won't go up to tapes. And they've obviously feel that it's safe enough to start the meeting, so we'll be keeping our fingers crossed that all 4 riders can negotiate the conditions. It will be tricky, it won't be what we want, but let's just hope that it's good enough and the rain stays away, that we can get this meeting on and get it through it to its conclusion. Tough now, you've got to make a start in these conditions.
Yep. Well, there is no rain at the moment, thankfully. It has stopped. Here we go, heat number 1. And away from the start, going into that first turn. Pierre off gate number 3. That's a great one for Denmark. And Pavlitsky is there in white, slipping and sliding. Coming out of turn 2, down the back straight we go. Jason Doyle is in yellow, and Antonio Lindback is in blue. And Lindback's coming through into 3rd place for Sweden. So it's Kenneth Pierre who made a fantastic start for Denmark.
He did indeed, and Kenneth Pierre was one that they pointed the finger at. Should he be included in this team? But crikey, he's made a smashing start, he's out in front. Doyle now getting the better of Antonio Lindback. Riders in certainly 3rd and 4th are struggling with visibility, but Kenneth Pierre, he's made a good start, he's out in front, and he's completely dominant.
Yeah, what a start it is then for Denmark here. Kenneth Pierre looking
Doyle's had to
superb.
take his goggles off, that's far from ideal. Pierre out in front, Pavlicki in 2nd place, Nodge.
Yep, 3rd is Jason Doyle. The goggles are off because of the problems with visibility, but Kenneth Pierre takes the checkered flag for Denmark. 2nd place in white was Przemek Pawlicki for the Polish side. Jason Doyle was 3rd, and Antonio Lindback at the back on that occasion. So it's a dream start for the home nation here in Vojens tonight, a rain-delayed meeting. But Kenneth Pierre, well, what a start he made. That was textbook from him.
It was indeed, and we saw him in Britain just very recently and had a very disappointing night, so it was a surprise that he was included in this team, but he may just have justified that. That was a terrific ride from him.
Yep, Kenneth Pierre, Przemek Pawlicki, Jason Doyle, Antonio Lindback, the finishing order. First race of the night. Pierre has kept out some good riders. Riders like Hans Andersen and Michael Jepsen-Jensen.
Well, yeah,
to be in this side.
Just having a bit of a chat about track conditions there, and there's no question of that it was quite tricky, very tricky in actual fact. Riders in 3rd and 4th had a real tough time. Great start from Pierre. Oh, all credit to him. He had the focus and the determination, battling there with Pavlicki coming through into 2nd place. Jason Doyle trapped on the outside, getting completely filled in, and actually later in the race, Doyle actually has to remove his goggles. That really isn't ideal. Pavlicki there just getting the better of the Australian, and Antonio Lindback back in 4th place. Pierre's good here, he rides a nice line, it is demanding. They all completed, fair play to them, all credit to the riders, not quite what we wanted to see, but the Danish team getting away off to a terrific start. Look at the boys having to pull tear-offs off. That really is tough out the back.
Yep, riders will be comparing notes down in the pits now. What a start from Kenneth Pierre. He wasn't worried about the visibility because he had the best view in the lot with a great
Absolutely,
start.
I said just before the race, if you can get in front, it's going to be really quite straightforward. If you ride sensibly, we're still waiting for riders for heat number 2.
More discussions here. Phil Morris, the race director, the team managers having a chat.
Well, this is no surprise for me. Track conditions are very tricky. And you could quite clearly see riders in 3rd and 4th were really struggling to see where they were going. And Mark Lemon is making his feeling known.
Yeah, well, his man, Jason Doyle, had to take his goggles off because it was...
That's no good.
Yep, that bad for him. And Antonio Lindback went from 3rd to last as Doyle came through. But there is no 2-minute time allowance on here, so the race director, Phil Morris, being spoken to by team managers now, and quite clearly concerned about the visibility, which I guess was always going to be the case with the tricky track conditions.
It is the visibility. The track conditions are tricky, but the base of the track is quite firm. But being able to see where you're going is of serious concern.
Pavlitsky having a chat as well.
Yeah,
making his point.
You know, and what we don't want to do is we don't want this stop-start scenario, do we? Unfortunately, we've got to stop straight after the first race. We've got now, you can just see the tension there now. Mark Lemon there, clearly frustrated. Phil Morris. It's going to be a tough decision time.
Well, there's only one reason why they are having a chat, and that's because they're not happy with it. Simple as that.
Safety.
So we'll see what the decision is made of this. Kenneth Bier did it all from the start, but whoever was behind the leader, it was always going to be difficult because of the visibility. But it was a great start from Kenneth Bier off gate 3.
Not really where he wanted to start from, really, because it's a bit further from gate 3, but the bike drives to the first corner really nicely indeed. Jason Doyle on the outside is having to pull a tear off immediately. Bier's almost got the victory in the bag immediately. Look at the spray as they go around turns 3 and 4 on the opening lap. Really tough. That is the challenge, that watery, dirty spray that comes off the back tyres with the surface water out there, and it's so difficult to see. Look at Jason Doyle, absolutely covered before the end of the first lap in actual fact. Bier, of course, has made the start. He's oblivious of all of that. Pavlicki riding sensibly in second place, but they're strung out. Wasn't a fabulous Speedway race. But for Bier, under a lot of pressure, a lot of expectation on his shoulders, he comes up with a good ride. But those boys out in 3rd and 4th, that was a character-building exercise for them.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. Quite clearly, Limbach can't see where he's going. And
that will always be the major challenge now, Nige. The fact that riders in 2nd, 3rd and 4th won't be able to see.
And that's not going to change, is it?
I know the track won't dry that way. It's so cloudy, it's so heavy, the atmosphere, it won't dry that quickly. And we're getting much later in the day, so.
Well, now we understand that they're going to come down to the track itself for more discussions. Anders Secker, the Danish team manager. Phil Morris, the race director. So here we have effectively the captains and the team managers with what is a track inspection and a meeting to decide whether this meeting continues.
The only way that this meeting should continue is if they can actually take that top surface off down to a dry material, because at the moment we've got this surface where it's very sloppy and it's full of water, and then the spray will not enable riders behind to see where they're going sufficiently. I think that is going to be the challenge. You either do that or you come back tomorrow when it's dry.
Right, so it does appear as though Phil Morris is just heading back towards the pits area to talk to the clerk of the course here at Vojens Speedway Centre. They have already done some remedial work, but really, how much more can be done is the question right now. Steve Brandon is our man in the pits, and he can bring us an update.
Yeah, the riders have basically said that they wanted to look at the track with Phil. They're not happy about the conditions. We saw Przemek Pawlicki come in very animated, and he was second in the race and said he was having awful difficulty turning the bike and controlling it in the middle of the corner. Jason Doyle and Antonio Limbach in last actually had to take their goggles off to finish the race. So I've been and had a word with Nicky Pedersen, the 3-time world champion, and Nicky's basically said what he was talking to Phil Morris about is, in his opinion, they have to get a blade on and they have to take a reasonable amount of material off the top. And he's talking about 1 inch to 1.5 inches and scraping it right off and getting rid of it and seeing what happens from there. But at the moment, the general consensus among the riders, they're not happy with the conditions on the track and don't feel it's safe to try and go out and race. So again, discussions will carry on and we'll see what happens. But the weather gods, again, are counting against this, and it is raining again quite heavily. So time will tell.
Yeah, I hear that as well, and I agree with Nicky Pedersen. I think they've got to get the top surface off, but there's pointless doing that if it continues to rain, because you'll expose a dry surface which will immediately become wet because it's raining. The only way this meeting can go ahead is it has to stop raining. They then need to tear the top surface back, which creates a lot of mess. It will take an hour at the very least. Or you postpone it until tomorrow lunchtime.
And the thing is as well, it's interesting that Steve said there that Przemek Pawlicki, the man we're seeing here, said that he was struggling to turn the bike. I thought that on the apex of the first turn. I thought Pawlicki looked as though he was in a little bit of trouble on the apex of the first and second turn.
Because you've got almost a little bit of aquaplaning for a minute, and then the bike digs in when it hits a little bit of grip, and it becomes very unpredictable. You know, the fact that Jason Doyle had to pull his goggles off is very significant.
Well, this is what I'm referring to now. Pawlicki is the man in white, and this is the moment just about there where I think he's struggling to turn the bike properly.
Well, he's turned and it's overlocked, and then he's found some grip, and it's just that, you know, it's just unpredictable. You see so much surface water there, which is no surprise. It's rained so very hard. And you know, we can beat about the bush all day long here. The fact of the matter is conditions are not good enough for a World Cup final, and you know, we're not going to get a very good meeting. That's quite clear. It's not going to dry this evening, so if we want a good World Cup final, probably have to wait until tomorrow.
Riders and team managers have left the track. Referee, clerk of the course, GP race director, World Cup race director, clerk of the course, they're all there down discussing, FIM officials. Steve Brandon is down in the pits. Steve, what can you tell us now?
Just a quick update, guys. Lots of heads shaking and guys telling me all sorts of different stories, so I'm not going to make a commitment at the moment, but I will leave you to talk for a moment and I'll go and see if I can get you a proper FIM update. So I'll be back to you as soon as I can.
Well, the FIM officials are actually on the track at the moment. Wolfgang Glass there, Christian Froschauer, the referee. He's with Paul Bellamy, the chief of BSI, alongside the race director.